We're the two teachers. Welcome to the Strangest Things.
Timeless talk about today's topics.
Andy, I've got a strangest thing this week, and that is the Senate seemingly is in a rush. They're in a hurry, as if somehow September 30th is some sort of magical time. Regardless of the vote, what's the rush?
Well, it kind of is a magical time because the parliamentarian.
The who?
That's right. An
Elected?
Unelected appointed official who's in charge of the legislative process rules. Those rules? Yeah, that's right. The rules of the U.S. Senate and what the Senate has to follow in order to make sure that the bills it passes are legitimate.
Well, Andy, it reminds me of that old adage, you don't make it a game, you don't make it a rules. And clearly, the Senate operates under rules that are way too complicated, way too strange for me to understand.
Well, we know that the Senate, compared to the House, actually technically has fewer rules, particularly when it comes to debate. We know that with the filibuster, the Senate minority can theoretically debate and delay most bills as a minority, unless the majority has 60 votes to close debate with a vote of cloture. So there's typically fewer rules in the Senate, but the rules that are there still matter.
Well, the rush here, Andy, the parliamentarian ruled that September 30th is the end of the fiscal year, meaning any budgetary talk must come to an end on September 30th. Then new rules kick in. And the rule basically is it takes 60 votes to get anything passed. But in a budget reconciliation moment, only 51 votes. So this gave the Senate Republicans, who have a very narrow majority, a unique window to maybe get something done. Not sure they will, but it all comes down to the rules.
The rules and that parliamentarian. And again, this is where we come up with that concept of the rule of law. In this case, the rule of the parliamentarian. That the parliamentarian has rules and traditions that the U.S. Senate chamber is operated by. And even though the majority, the Republican Party, might really disagree with some ruling that the parliamentarian makes, and it might be more expedient for the Republican majority to ignore the parliamentarian, they still listen to the parliamentarian because of the rule of law.
Say, Andy, but who makes these rules? The Senate is under these rules, and the parliamentarian makes decisions based on the rules. Who makes the rules?
Well, some of those rules, like the filibuster, go back to the very first Congress. Not in the Constitution. You're never going to see the word filibuster.
So they can be changed.
The rules can be changed, and we know that
with the simple majority vote.
We know that both the Democrats and Republicans have changed the rules on filibusters regarding the delay of cabinet officials, federal judges, and most recently Supreme Court judges.
So, Andy,
yes, the rules can change.
Andy, you know friends don't lie, and I've got a bit of a truth ache. We're hearing a lot about these block grants. Andy, we all know that the federal government disperses money to the states, but some sort of block grant is going to be the savior or the cure of healthcare in this country. What's a block grant?
Well, remember, a block grant is that federal funding that comes from the national central government and is given to state and local governments, but with flexible spending. So it's given for a general purpose, and the state and local government can spend that money within that flexible purpose.
So like your dad giving you your allowance, but you can spend it on anything that you want?
Not anything. There's parameters. There's boundaries. So if you...
Do I have to take it as a state?
No, but if you want, let's say, $1.5 billion in block grants for transportation, as a city or a state, you can use that block grant money for public transportation, for interstate highway repairs. It's within your flexibility, discretion for that local government to spend that money within those boundaries.
Andy, why do Republicans think the block grant is the way to cure health care?
Because Republicans tend to be the party that trusts. Well, I haven't said anything yet. They tend to be the party that trusts state and local government more. Remember, back in the 90s, this is how the Republican majority Congress wanted to deal with welfare reform. They wanted to give more block grant money to states. Here's the welfare reform money from the national government. You can now experiment with welfare policies within these parameters. And they essentially want to do something similar with healthcare.
Andy, it's time to walk through that curiosity door. Keep those questions coming in at citizenu.org. Talk to the two teachers. Andy, a question we're getting all the time is, when we used to have a question, when we used to walk through the curiosity door, we'd look for an expert. Ask the experts. That elite opinion. Andy, it seems like now that's a negative. We've got questions coming in. Who are the experts today?
Well, we know who the experts are. We know that there are elites out there, but whether or not we support their opinion, that's a widely disparate answer. Because, heck, a year ago, Dan, we had a presidential candidate who was lecturing a large group of Americans about what they should believe, and that candidate used the word to characterize that group of Americans of deplorable. And in many ways, that group of Americans became really energized to vote against that presidential candidate. Now we seem to have a president, elite opinion, who's lecturing a group of Americans to not believe something and to not protest about those beliefs. And some of the backlash, it really reminds me of a year ago, of sometimes when an elite is lecturing a large group of Americans about their beliefs, that lecture isn't necessarily appreciated.
Andy, sounds to me like it's a new twist on Cartesian philosophy. Let's be reminded, I think, therefore I am the expert. Say, we're the two teachers, and this has been another episode of The Strangest Things. No fancy words.
No fancy suits.
Plain talk about issues you need to know.
Just in time.
I think, therefore I am.